Hey everybody, Michael Kelly here for Dot Esports alongside Team Liquid's head coach Jatt after a week one, day one upset loss to Immortals. And Jatt, I have to know, although being on the wrong end of an upset is definitely an unfortunate circumstance, what does it take to kind of bounce back from a loss like this? How do you kind of pick up the pieces and keep moving on?
Yeah, I think when we're going to be in the situation a lot this year where we're the favorites going into the game, and based on the way we're trying to approach the game, we are going to lose. Uh, Hopefully, we win a lot more than we lose, but when we're trying to play at limits, we're going to make some mistakes. And we made actually a lot of mistakes in this game. So we're obviously really disappointed, but just identifying where we went wrong, what we want to change in draft, and what we want to change in play can kind of refocus us. And even though I would have loved to be able to avoid this drop off, I do think it's somewhat natural when you have, I guess, this big high of winning the lock in tournament. We also showed 14 drafts on stage and Immortal showed zero. So I think they did very well. Like they should be very pleased with their win. But I was hoping we wouldn't have a letdown game, but we did. And we need to move on.
Definitely, and obviously it's the first day of the season, and there's a long road ahead. But from a team perspective, how important is it to get these, rough patch losses out of the way as early as possible?
Yeah, I mean that's the silver lining, right? Lose now, not later, and take your lumps in the regular season. And especially with the format this year, like it's a 54 game regular season and 8 teams make playoffs. So sure, losing is bad, winning is better, but the improvement is the important part. So we're not taking this loss too hard.
Definitely, and you have mentioned that it is a very, very long road to the October World Championship. How do you
Mhm.
kind of, keep the focus on the long term? Obviously, losing one game is unfortunate, but you and I both know tonight was the start of a very, very long journey to Worlds. How do you kind of keep the momentum rolling? How do you keep the team's energy and focus compiled onto that end game, end goal?
Yeah, I mean losses like this can actually help when we lose to a team that we don't feel like we should lose to. It can wake us up a little bit more. Um, and make us show more respect to all of our opponents.
Definitely, and I mean, you guys have a potential bounce back game tomorrow. Speaking of more opponents on the horizon, you mentioned the 54 game regular season. Tomorrow's game against Dignitas, like you mentioned before, you're going to go in as the perceived favorites again. What are you looking to kind of do in terms of, adjustments, fine tuning? How do you ensure that the team won't make the same mistakes that it made tonight, not only tomorrow, but down the line throughout the entire regular season?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this falls on individuals. Cold and I have to make sure that we prepare for any of the curveballs that Dignitas can throw at us in draft, and then all the players are going to be a little sharper, I think, going into tomorrow and ready to go. I don't think there's necessarily like one master plan that we can have to make sure that we bounce back, but I think we have a team of incredibly talented players, and I think we're going to do well, and I think we're going to win tomorrow.
You definitely do have an incredible team on your hands. I mean, probably the most talented on paper roster in the LCS. I mean, top to bottom, you have players who are top three, top two, even the best at their positions in a lot of places on the Rift. What do games like this kind of do in terms of humbling those talented players and kind of keeping the mentality focused on, hey, this league has gotten better? How do you kind of deal with games like this from a player personality standpoint?
I mean, honestly, I don't feel like needing to be humbled was a problem with this team. I think it's a team that plays with a lot of confidence, but it's also a team that plays with a lot of respect. I think a lot of that does come from CoreJJ in the sense that he started in NA as an 80 carry, right? Went back to Korea, won Worlds, came back here. Like he understands that there are good players and good teams in this league, and that you need to take this league very seriously in order to win. So I don't think that's a problem for this team. And it's just a matter of making sure you're approaching every game with as much focus as possible.
For sure. And you mentioned CoreJJ, who is one of the longest tenured members of this Team Liquid roster. What do players like him contribute on a daily basis? How do the louder voices on Team Liquid help this roster grow together? Because really, I mean, you have two players coming into the fold in Alfari and Santorin, and that synergy has to be developed. So how do the team leaders step up and make sure that synergy develops?
I just think it starts with a lot of respect. I think, for the most part, our team is clicking really well out of the gate, today notwithstanding. But it's about respecting each other's opinions, going into each game with an open mind, and then trying to find what you think the best objective play or the best objective strategy is. One thing about the team this year is that we are willing to take a lot of risks. We're willing to try a lot of things, and we're kind of going to hone in over time.
Definitely. And I think, it's important that you mention the ability to kind of keep the team moving. Don't let anything stop you. It's a very long season, and the ability to respect your opponents, that priority to respect the game, the league, because obviously NA has gotten better. And anybody can really beat anybody, as was proven tonight. Moving forward, and this is where I will kind of leave you, I suppose. How do you ensure that Team Liquid moves on from this loss to Immortals and the games against the Cloud Nines, the Hundred Thieves of the league? You can just put this in the rearview mirror and focus on those guys. How do you kind of turn your attention to being a contender in the long term?
I mean, this team is pretty focused on the long term, so I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for this. I don't think we need to do anything in particular to make that happen. We review this game, we see what we did wrong, we see why we lost, and we move on because it's all of these guys have lost plenty of games before and will lose plenty of games in the future, and we're focused on the long term process.
Definitely, and I mean, you guys have the talent to withstand yourselves far into that long term process, and I think tonight's
Mhm.
game was just a mere bump in the road from an objective standpoint.
Hopefully, it's a blip.
Yeah,
Yep.
of course, and I think, like you said, 54 game regular season. There's a long way to go. Well, Jet, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the time, especially after a tough loss like this one. But definitely, super thankful for your time for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, man.